What's up, Jansport Backpack? I'm your guide Q, and today we're looking at this thread, what's the biggest red flag you ignored, which is interesting because it shows some deeper experiences of people who stuck around for way too long after seeing red flags, and includes some stuff that isn't just romantic relationships. So let's get into it. Oh, my friends were telling me my ex-GF was hanging out a little too closely to her ex-BF. Unfortunately, I had more faith in her than she deserved that she wouldn't cheat, but she did. Yeah, dude, if you're hanging out with your ex and you don't have a child with that person, you better have a pretty good fucking reason. You two need to be working together on a billion-dollar company, maybe a world-famous musical act or something like that, but I can't think of a lot of good reasons. Okie doke. Dated someone for years at the end of high school and early college. Early into the relationship was a lot of talks about pregnancy and kids. It was pretty obvious it was one of her main obsessions, was getting pregnant. That was weirdly worded. Would take turns choosing movie night, and every one she chose was about teenage pregnancy and it being pretty glorified. There's surprisingly a lot of movies about a pregnant teen, etc. When I was 22 or so, she insisted that if I wouldn't get her pregnant, yet I said once we're financially stable and in a healthy relationship I would, she said she is going to get artificial insemination to get pregnant for her friend and give them the kid. I immediately was freaked out and cut things off. It was way too much for me. She was hot though. Hot people are so dangerous, bro, because, they can have all the red flags, and then you just look at their face, and you're like, oh, well, they're pretty hot. What was I thinking about before? And it's this woman clearly has an obsession with getting pregnant. I don't even know if she has an obsession with having a kid, just, the act of getting pregnant and that whole experience. And, as a 22-year-old, I would be absolutely intimidated by that. Even now, at 27, I would be freaked the fuck out and running for the hills. All he talked about was his ex. On the first date, while he was waiting with me for my taxi, he got a text saying his ex was now official with one of his friends. He knew they were talking, but didn't think they'd go official. He moaned about how annoyed he was about it until my taxi showed up. Once I got home, he apologized for moaning to me, so I thought I'd see him again. Any date after this, he kept bringing her up at any chance. For example, if I said, I'm going to have the chicken, he would say, Emma loved chicken. What the fuck, dude? Clearly this man is hurt. This girl is dating one of his best friends, or one of his friends, maybe not a best friend, but it's official now. That sucks. Definitely, a major red flag. If somebody's constantly talking about their ex, they're clearly not over it. You should not date them, but still doesn't mean you can't feel bad for that person. I mean, Emma loved chicken, you know? She always had a nemesis. Even after she cut them from her life, two more enemies would sprout up. It was her causing all the drama in the end. Yeah, this is insane. I have not met a person that, had a nemesis since, probably high school, maybe college. Your life is not a movie. You do not need a main villain. You should probably just avoid that person and not, constantly have some sort of antagonistic relationship. He talked major shit about all of his friends constantly. I never even considered that he was going to do the same thing to them about me. Yeah, this is just a major red flag and something that everybody should look out for. Another somewhat related, unrelated thing, just a piece of advice, be careful, especially if you think you are genuinely in a good relationship, how much steam you blow off about your partner to other people, because all of a sudden, they're not there for every day of your relationship where, you're not fighting or, issues aren't happening. So if you only bring up the issues that you're having, you can end up having your friends, hate your partner when it's completely unjustified just because, you kind of had a habit of complaining. When we started dating, I had to constantly apologize for her rude behavior to others, but ignored it because she was so nice to me at that time. Somebody says, yeah, that was my ex too. She kept telling me that she's a mean person and that her friends were even astonished at how nice she was to me. Keep trying to teach her to be a good person, but man, did it feel fake. Things were downright horrible when our relationship became rocky. Yeah, I've only let this slide with acquaintances or semi-friends that were mean to everybody else but me, but it just starts to get to you after a while. It has to. You can't just ignore that they're awful to everyone else and think oh, because they're nice to me, they must be fine. Even if it doesn't end up getting directed at you at some point, and it probably will, why would you want to be around a person that makes people uncomfortable and is just shitty? Oh, that's just my personality. I'm just abrasive, bro. Ooh, she had 10 relationships that lasted no longer than 4 months each, and it was always their fault. It was my first relationship, and it destroyed me. Oh, God, I'm sorry to hear that, bro, but at least you know that you're not the problem. That's something to hang your hat on. Not pumping the brakes when a cat was crossing the road. Plenty of reaction time to do it. Alongside lack of empathy and accountability after the fact. No way, you're telling me this person wasn't empathetic? No, this is like some serious psychopath shit. You should like preemptively report this to your local authorities as a precautionary measure. And I'm just gonna throw out something that's only tangentially related, but another red flag is people that are just like unnecessarily dangerous while they're driving, with or without people in the car, but especially if you have other people in the car. Like, I don't care if they're a really good driver, I don't care if they're only having fun, if you have fun while they're doing it. It just kind of shows that that person doesn't value either of your lives very much. Like, anything can fucking happen. Why would you put yourself at extra unnecessary risk? She named our future kids and painted sunflowers on our future front yard picket fence. All in her head, of course. This was while we were both in college and breaking up pretty regularly in multiples of 28 days. I was stuck in that relationship for 2.5 years, which is 2.4 years longer than it needed to be. Jesus Christ. Yeah, this kind of goes into like a category we talked about in a previous video, which is just moving things way too fast, talking about like extremely serious, life-affecting stuff very early on in a relationship. And I'm just gonna go ahead and say it, on and off again relationships are a pretty big red flag for me. Like, I'm not saying they are all doomed to fail. People definitely might figure it out over time, but like, you really gotta look at yourself and say like, am I doing this just because it feels comfortable to go back to this thing that I'm used to, instead of like, you know, the discomfort of being alone for a while or trying to meet somebody new. Ugh, this one creeped me out just to read, when he insists on being the only person who understands me. Like, I think it's one thing if somebody says, like, hey, you are the only person who understands me, because sometimes people can have, like, that one person that, you know, just gets them more than other people. But when somebody is reversing that and being like, no, I'm the only person who understands you, nobody else could even come close to comprehending. Like, that is just fucking creepy and controlling and just setting up for all sorts of terrible things to have. The biggest red flag I ignored was the one I was waving in my own face every time I chose to lie about or omit something to avoid hurting my wife's feelings or avoid an argument, instead of just being transparent and forthcoming and figuring out our problems. Happy spouse, happy life is a big fat lie, people. You are going to hurt your best friend real bad if you keep it up. This is impressive that somebody recognized this problem within themselves. I do think that it is something that people should be careful about. Like, I have advised in the past, I don't want to be a hypocrite, I have advised in other more casual scenarios, telling white lies to avoid arguments or just unnecessary problems with people. But when it's with your partner, it's just the stakes are way higher and you need to bring those things up at some point. They once bragged about how they knew how to twist the knife. At the time, I just brushed it off, but needless to say, it didn't end well. People will tell you who they are, you just have to listen. And this pretty much goes for like anybody, in my opinion, that brags about like the bad things that they are capable of. Kind of related to like the person that just like randomly has a nemesis even though they like aren't living in a movie. It's like, why do you need to know how to do these bad things? Why are you telling me about it? Like, it's just a warning basically, and you should heed it. Alright, this one's kind of among us, so let me read it. I had a crush my first semester of college. He didn't like me talking to his friends and got mad at me for adding them back on Snapchat, but I didn't think anything of it. Turns out he was talking to 20 other Asian girls and wanted to make sure none of them were talking to other dudes, so it's easier to control them. He'd also send me videos of himself flexing his muscles, and at the time I found it flirty. But now looking back, it came off as kind of shallow. Okay, I would just throw away the entire flexing muscles thing. That is just being flirty. I don't know if that's necessarily a red flag, unless something about it seemed generic and it seemed like he was sending this to other people. I don't know if I fully believe the 20 other specifically Asian girls. Like, those are insane numbers even for college, but I mean, maybe dude was just slaying out there, but does not sound like a good person. I just have a flirty personality. Why can't people accept that? Yeah, once somebody starts saying I have a flirty personality, I just flirt with people at work, and it's just no. If you're in a relationship, you need to calm down the flirty personality. And this is not to be confused with the opposite scenario where someone is literally just nice to other people and their partner accuses them of being flirty. Two things to watch out for. And if you have like a misconception of what is flirty and what isn't, you can just completely lose yourself in this scenario. So good luck out there, everybody. When they promised me transferable skills that would pay off in the workforce. I'm guessing this is a complaint about the military, and like obviously I haven't experienced it, but I've watched a ton of videos of like guys going around the barracks and talking like, hey, if you could say one thing to a recruiter, what would you say? And it's just like 12 different versions of guys saying fuck you. So like, yeah, be careful out there. Ooh, this is deep. This one goes very far. Sometimes the drama she had with other people didn't make sense. Like I'd asked, what did they say? And she would generalize in a vague way. One time I doubled down and asked literally what exact words were said. And she started crying because she was so upset. Turned out she invented drama, including faking phone calls, emails, and text messages. She couldn't give me exact words because there were no exact words. She was just a fucking sociopath. I feel like this is either not real or a very, very specific niche scenario where somebody's making up fake drama, but the first part is still a red flag nonetheless. And it's such a difficult situation because the person who like tells you about drama and wants to seem right is going to get so defensive if you start asking for more details because they know the details could make them sound worse, and they're going to accuse you of like, oh, are you just not on my side? Why are you trying to like fact check everything that I'm telling you? Which like could also be bad on the other side. Everything is just a nightmare, guys. Don't be in any relationships. Just, stay by yourself, play CSGO in your bedroom all day. People always ask why I'm dating you because of how you look. He broke me down so bad, I'm still picking myself back up years later. Yeah, if somebody says this to you, they're either trying to destroy your self-esteem or trying to get you to change the way that they look, and they're doing it in an extremely weak and manipulated way by pretending that it's not them saying it and that it's what other people are saying, like this vague, sort of ambiguous other people think this about you. Like, it's just fucked. Ooh, this is a good one deeper down in the thread. Immediate red flag. The first fight feels like a breakup fight. Run ultimatum scenarios. I'm already gone. Yeah, and this one just scares me thinking about it. And I think the reason that this is a somewhat subtle red flag is some people might not know what the intensity of a first fight should be like. But yeah, if they're running ultimatum scenarios, major issue. Like, if it feels like a breakup fight, maybe it just should be the breakup fight and you should get out of there. I talked about this a little bit in a previous video, but just as a general rule of thumb, people tend to start off their relationships with their best foot forward, trying to impress you, and then as you start to get more comfortable, experience more things, that's when problems tend to arise. So if serious shit is happening like a couple weeks in and everything seems fucked, you're probably just gonna peel off more layers of like an unstable individual who can't handle a relationship. My husband likes to make insensitive comments about other people. Sometimes I'm even the butt of the joke. When I express my displeasure, it's always, it's just a joke, it's hyperbole, that's why it's funny. The very first time it happened, it made me feel so bad, but we were already living together at that point. I should have left then. I often consider leaving now, but I don't have the courage. He's threatened to slide down a sewer, if you know what that means, if I ever leave. Okay, so this is like a three-parter for me, because one, I don't necessarily think insensitive jokes are a red flag, but once you've expressed your displeasure and they continue, that would definitely be a red flag for me. And the biggest red flag here is literally anyone who threatens to, video game themselves if you don't do a certain thing or if you leave. Like, I support all the people out there who struggle with depression and the more extreme forms of that, but once you start using that to threaten somebody else if they don't do certain actions, it's just throw the entire person out. Like, please go away. So this one's just one word, and it's alcoholism, and of course it's a very obvious red flag, right? Well, maybe not. I think that alcoholism and its different forms are like normalized in so many fucking cultures. It definitely was where I lived growing up, and like if you work in a certain industry or you're in college, like there can be so many sneaky forms of alcoholism that you might not notice, and it's not necessarily a reason to not be friends with somebody or not, well, maybe not date that person at that time, but like, reach out to them, have that tough conversation. It's probably gonna suck and they might not want to be your friend, but maybe they'll think about it. This is for a job, but it was a well-established company that has been around for a long time. However, when I went in for the interview, the most senior person there had been there for 2 years. Everyone I talked to was there for 6 months, 7 months, almost a year. Hey dum-dum, why do you think this place can't retain employees? Well, I found out when I got the job. I went in and was put in a completely different job that I had no interest in. At least I was finally smart enough to tell them if I wasn't given the position I interviewed for and was hired for, I was going to leave. Lasted 3 hours. That has to be a record. So yeah, pay attention to the turnover rates. If everyone is new and the company is not, that's a big red flag. I had a somewhat similar situation to this where I got hired for a job pretty much on the spot, and it had like a massive bonus for whatever employee recruited you to the company. It was not an MLM, it was like a real customer service job, but the average age of the customer was like 75 years old, and you had to do everything on this computer system from like the early 90s. Like I'm talking black screen, green text, you can't even use your mouse, like it was a nightmare. You know what's a big green flag? Watching another Q-Star video. Let me recommend the other red flag video, or my thing on awful taste, great execution. It's kind of a fun video. Maybe it won't make you feel so bad. Hope everybody's doing super well. Channel members on the left, thank you guys so much. I'll see you all super soon. Make sure you're skating on to the best of your abilities, drinking a lot of water, and taking care of yourself. Peace out.